He had been looking forward to this night for weeks. Everything about it felt important. The invitations were limited, the guest list carefully selected, and the atmosphere carried a quiet sense of power. This was the kind of place where reputations were built, where one conversation could change everything. As he stepped inside, he adjusted his jacket slightly, scanning the room with a practiced eye. He recognized faces, people he admired, people he wanted to impress, people who could open doors he had been trying to reach for years. Beside him, his wife walked calmly. She didn't rush, didn't try to match the energy of the room. Her presence was steady, almost effortless. She wore elegance without needing attention, and though she said nothing, there was a quiet confidence in the way she carried herself. A few guests glanced in their direction. He noticed. And instead of feeling proud, he felt something else. A subtle tension, as if her presence somehow shifted the attention away from where he wanted it to be. He couldn't explain it clearly, but it was enough to make him slightly uncomfortable. He moved forward, greeting a colleague with a firm handshake and a polished smile. The conversation was easy at first: work, opportunities, small talk that felt necessary in a place like this. His wife stood beside him, listening, not interrupting, simply present. Then came the question: who is she? It was simple, casual, expected, but in that moment, his mind didn't respond the way it should have. He hesitated. Just for a second, and that second changed everything. "Oh, she helps around the house," he said, his tone light, almost dismissive. The words slipped out too easily, as if they had been waiting. People around him nodded, accepting the answer without question. The conversation moved forward, laughter returning, attention shifting back to safer topics. But something had already shifted. His wife didn't react the way most people would. Didn't correct him. She didn't show anger. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she stood there quietly, her expression unchanged, her posture still composed. If anything, she seemed even calmer than before. It unsettled him. He glanced at her briefly, expecting to catch some sign: disappointment, confusion, anything. But there was nothing obvious. Just silence. Somehow, that silence felt louder than any reaction could have been. He tried to move past it, to focus on the conversations around him, but something didn't sit right anymore. The room felt slightly different, even though nothing had visibly changed. Across the hall, a few more guests had started to arrive. Among them, someone important. Someone whose presence carried more weight than anyone else in the room. And as the attention slowly began to shift in that direction, his wife finally took a small step forward. Not toward him, away, quietly, as if she already knew something he didn't. He barely noticed when she stepped away. At first, his focus stayed on the conversation in front of him. After, business talk, careful networking, it all continued as if nothing had happened. But something felt slightly off, like a detail just out of place. And he turned. She was no longer beside him. A small thing, but it caught his attention more than he expected. He scanned the room casually at first, not wanting to draw attention to it. It wasn't near the table, not by the entrance, not anywhere within his immediate view. For a brief moment, he told himself it didn't matter. She could handle herself. It was a large event. People moved around all the time. Still, something about the timing unsettled him. Across the room, the atmosphere began to shift. Conversation softened, posture straightened, and a quiet wave of attention moved toward the entrance. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. Someone important had arrived. He followed the direction of the crowd's focus, and then he saw him. His boss, the kind of presence that didn't need introduction, yet commanded one instantly. People stepped aside. Greetings became more formal, and the energy of the room adjusted around him. It was the moment he had been waiting for. Opportunity. He straightened his shoulders, preparing himself, rehearsing the right words in his mind. This was his chance to stand out, to be noticed in the right way. Everything else faded into the background, including her. As he began to move closer, he noticed something unusual. His boss wasn't stopping for long conversations. He wasn't engaging the way he normally did. Instead, he walked with a clear direction, acknowledging people briefly but not staying. As if he had somewhere specific to be, the room grew quieter with each step he took. And then, he stopped. Not in the center, not near the most influential group, but slightly off to the side, exactly where she was standing. For a second, he didn't understand what he was seeing. His wife stood there calmly, just as she had earlier, her posture unchanged, her expression steady. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look nervous. If anything, she looked prepared. His boss stepped closer to her. Something unexpected happened. He smiled. Not the polite, measured smile he gave others. Still one. The kind that carried recognition. The room went still. People noticed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Because this wasn't normal. This wasn't planned. And suddenly, the attention he had been trying so hard to gain, shifted completely. Not to him. To her. In that moment, a quiet realization began to form. He had misunderstood something important. And he was about to find out just how much. The room didn't just quiet down, it focused. I seemed to settle on that single moment as his boss stood in front of her. The difference in energy was undeniable. This wasn't a casual greeting, not something polite or expected. It was intention and mission. His wife didn't step back, didn't look surprised. She simply met his gaze with the same calm confidence she had carried all evening. "Good to see you," his boss said, his tone warm, genuine. Not formal, not familiar. A subtle shift moved through the crowd. People exchanged quick glances, trying to understand what they were witnessing, because this wasn't how he greeted just anyone. His wife gave a slight nod, her voice steady. "You made it." Simple words, but the way they were exchanged, it meant something. The man who had spent the entire evening trying to get closer now found himself frozen in place. His thoughts struggled to catch up with what he was seeing. This didn't fit into anything he expected, not even close. His boss turned slightly, addressing a small group that had gathered nearby, but his attention kept returning to her. It was clear, this moment revolved around her, not the room. "Everyone," he said, his voice carrying just enough to draw full attention, "I'd like you to meet someone important." The air shifted again. A quiet anticipation spread through the crowd. The man felt his chest tighten, an unexplainable tension building as he took a step closer, almost without thinking. Something told him he needed to hear this. Needed to understand. Boss gestured toward her. "This is the reason tonight exists," he continued. "The host." The word echoed. Host. For a second, it didn't register. It did. Conversations didn't just stop, they disappeared. The room held its breath as the meaning settled in. Faces changed. Expressions shifted from curiosity to realization, and then, to shock. Same people who had accepted his earlier words without question now looked back at him, their expressions no longer neutral. There was confusion, quiet judgment, and something else, something he couldn't ignore. His wife remained composed, unshaken, as if this moment had always been waiting to happen. His boss continued, speaking about her with a level of respect that made everything even clearer. Her role, her influence, her connection to the event, it wasn't small, it wasn't hidden, it was central. The foundation of everything around them. The men stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. The words he had said earlier replayed in his mind, louder now, heavier. "Oh, she helps around the house." They didn't sound harmless anymore, they sounded careless, small, and completely wrong. Across the room, attention had fully shifted, not toward him, but toward the woman he had failed to recognize in the most important moment. And as the realization settled in, one truth became impossible to ignore: he hadn't just misrepresented her, he had underestimated her. The applause started slowly, not loud, not overwhelming at first. Just a few hands coming together as the realization settled across the room. Then it grew, stronger, more certain. Respect replacing confusion, admiration replacing doubt, and all of it was directed at her. She stood there calmly, acknowledging it with a small, composed nod. No dramatic reaction, no attempt to take advantage of the moment. Just quiet control, the same presence she had carried from the beginning. But now, everyone saw it. He didn't move. The sound of the applause felt distant, like it was happening somewhere else. Focus stayed fixed on her, trying to reconcile the person he thought he knew with the one standing in front of him now. They weren't different people. He had always been this person. He just hadn't seen it. His boss continued speaking, highlighting her role, her vision, the way she had shaped the event from behind the scenes. Every word added weight, filling in the gaps he hadn't even realized existed. Around him, people shifted. The same individuals who had nodded at his earlier introduction now looked at him differently. Not openly, not directly, but enough for him to feel it. The quiet change in perception. The unspoken questions. Why would he say that? Why would he reduce someone like her to something so small? He felt it now. Not just embarrassment, regret. Across the room, she moved slightly, stepping forward as the attention remained on her. She spoke briefly, thanking everyone, her voice steady and clear. There was no sign of discomfort, no hint of addressing what had happened earlier. She didn't need to. Truth had already spoken for itself. When she finished, the applause returned, stronger this time. And as the room slowly began to settle again, conversations resumed, but with a different tone. People approached her, not casually, not out of politeness, but with genuine interest, respect, the kind he had tried to earn all evening. And suddenly, it wasn't his moment anymore. It was hers. He took a slow breath, finally stepping forward, his movements less certain than before. The confidence he had carried into the room had faded, replaced by something quieter, more aware. He stopped a few steps away from her. For a second, he didn't know what to say. Words felt smaller now, insufficient. She turned toward him, meeting his gaze. There was no anger in her expression. No accusation, just clarity, and somehow, that made it harder, because she didn't need to confront him. The moment had already done that. Everything he had said, everything he had assumed, stood exposed without a single argument. And as they faced each other in that space, one truth settled heavily between them: respect isn't something you adjust based on who's watching. It's something you either have, or you don't. The room slowly returned to its rhythm, conversations rebuilding, laughter rising again, but for him, everything felt different. The noise around him no longer mattered. Only thing that held his attention was her. He was speaking with guests now, calm and confident, moving through the room as if she had always belonged at the center of it. And the truth was, she had. He just hadn't recognized it. He took a step closer, then another, until he finally stood in front of her again. This time, there was no audience that mattered, no impression to maintain, just the space between them. "I need to say something," he began, his voice quieter than it had been all night. She looked at him, listening, but not interrupting. "Was wrong," he said. Simple. Direct. No attempt to soften it. "What I said earlier, it shouldn't have been said. Not like that." For a moment, she didn't respond. She let the words sit there, giving them the weight they deserved. She nodded slightly, not dismissing them, but not making them bigger than they needed to be. "It already showed what it needed to," she replied calmly. There was no anger in her tone, just truth. That made him pause, because he understood what she meant. The issue wasn't just the words, it was what they revealed. Hesitation. The choice he made in that moment. "I didn't think," he admitted. "I was trying to fit into something that doesn't even matter." And in doing that, she said gently, "You forgot what did." Her words didn't cut, they clarified. He looked around the room briefly, then back at her. "You were never something to hide." "No," she said. The answer wasn't defensive. It was certain, and that certainty made everything clearer than any argument could have. For the first time that evening, he allowed himself to fully understand the difference between them in that moment. It hadn't changed based on the room, the people, or the pressure. She had remained exactly who she was. He was the one who shifted. "I don't expect you to just move past it," he added. "I'm not holding on to it," she replied. "Don't ignore it either." That balance, honesty without bitterness, was something he hadn't expected. It gave the moment space to exist without breaking it completely. A quiet pause settled between them, but this time it felt different. Not heavy, not tense, just real. "I'm proud of you," he said finally. She held his gaze for a second, then gave a small, genuine smile. "That should have been the first thing you said," nodded, because she was right. And as the evening continued around them, one thing became clear in a way it hadn't before: respect isn't proven in big moments. It's revealed in small ones. And sometimes, one moment is enough to change everything.